That's Matt Brown. That's Matt Fortuna, Inside Zone, and also the Independent Podcast. So follow him on Twitter at Matt_Fortuna. Coaching carousel has been, I won't say crazy, but it's been moderate. Not as, 2 years ago when we had LSU, Notre Dame, USC Oklahoma. Texas A&M's a big job so far, and we could see some changes in the near future. But so far, Matt, who do you think made the best hire in this cycle?
I would say Houston getting Willie Fritz. That's a guy who, a little bit like Kalen DeBoer, has won big at every level he's been in. He won the Cotton Bowl last year at Tulane. Was a game away from getting back to a New Year's Six game this year. And he's got some Texas roots as well. And you look at Houston, I know they struggled in year one in the Big 12, but you look at the new Big 12 without Oklahoma, without Texas. You look at the money and the investments that Houston has put into that program. I wouldn't call it a sleeping giant because they've been really good before, but I think when you get the right coach in there who's about ball and about the right things, I think Willie Fritz is going to be a home run hire there.
We are, as Tim said, we are a betting network. And so outside of the teams that you know are going to be good next year, outside of the teams that everyone's going to be betting on, is there a team that you kind of have your eye on that if things work out, you're kind of like, I'm going to be interested in that team?
It's so hard to say right now because the roster turnover, today was the official opening of the portal, and you're seeing names in there left and right. We were just talking about it off air. How many great teams are either losing their quarterbacks or in the market for a quarterback?
I don't even know Dylan Gabriel's still at eligibility, so apparently he's in the portal.
Wherever he goes, they're going to be among the favorites in their conference.
Yeah, and how surprised were you? Because you and I both were there, Notre Dame, Ohio State, and then you were there, Ohio State, Michigan. I think every Ohio State fan was obviously not enamored by Kyle McCord. Were you surprised to see him go into the portal today?
I didn't wake up this morning expecting to see that news, but I'm sure he had candid conversations with Ryan Day. I'm sure Ryan Day said, look, we're going to be active in the portal, as most Blue Bloods are. We'll lay it out to you. And look, no matter how good or bad you are, if you start 12 games for the Ohio State University, you do not want to go back to the bench. And you're good enough to start at probably 90% of the programs across the country and wants to keep playing. So, look, he wasn't bad by any stretch of the imagination. He just wasn't. You look at that offense, the Ryan Day offense, it's predicated on having essentially a first-round quarterback.
With those wide receivers,
receivers. Look at the past quarterbacks. C.J. Stroud, Dwayne Haskins, Justin Fields. These are all first-round picks. All guys were able to make plays through the air. They really, they've got talented running backs, but they do not rely on the run, especially in situational football, the way that most teams should. You knew that was ultimately going to be their undoing, and I hate to put it all on one man because it's not like that defense could get off the field late against Michigan, but you just did not trust them to make the big plays. And again, not to go back to the Notre Dame game, if Cam Hart doesn't drop an interception that's right in his hands. DJ Brown, I'm sorry. If DJ Brown doesn't drop an interception right in his hands, if Notre Dame puts 11 people on the field, I think the entire trajectory, or at least narrative of that Ohio State season is different when they lose a game that early and when they struggle to put away teams the way they did early in the season after that game. So I'm not terribly surprised he's looking for a new home. I'll be curious to see who Ryan Day and Lincoln Riley, for that matter, because I'd argue those are the two best quarterback coaches in the country, head coaches in the country, who both of them end up with portal-wise for next year.
Let's head to Texas and Washington right now. Texas 4.5-point favorite, 64.5 is the total. Seems like that big performance from Washington. Everyone's talking about Washington. You've got Penix, and you've got all Heisman finalists. You've got Alabama, and you got Michigan. Like Texas is just kind of out there. It's weird because it's Texas.
Right.
And, it used to be a team that we would talk about year in, year out. And Texas is like, oh, Texas is
now they're
right.
back. It's like, okay.
Texas, right. Look at that. That's crazy. So here we are. See them as 4.5-point favorites here over Washington.
Yeah. Not surprised based on the way they've dominated their competition the last couple of weeks. The disrespect we've seen the odds makers give to Washington week in and week out. I would definitely, as a 4.5-point underdog, I would take Washington in this game. You show the 4-team championship odds there. Washington at plus 700. That's as tempting of a team in the playoff long shot that I think you could possibly take, because I think they are capable of doing it. A lot of times, like last year with TCU, like when Notre Dame's been in a couple times, there were teams in the playoff that you knew were not capable of winning two of these games. Cincinnati, right?
Washington, their first time.
This is a team that's proven it can beat anybody, and they believe they can win these close games. They've won a lot of close games, and while they're penalized from the eye test narrative in that regard, I think that gives them an edge when they're in some of these games. Because Texas played in a lot of close games midseason too, and they finally seem to have really stepped on the gas. I mean, beating Texas Tech by 50, beating Oklahoma State by, I think it was 28. And it
28, yeah.
Probably should have been more. Quinn Ewers had the worst pick I've ever seen in my life, and he still played a phenomenal game. That's a very, very talented team. But who do you trust more in that big game, right? The ex-Washington coach or the current Washington coach?
It's a great question. I mean, I think there's more Jimmys and Joes on Texas's roster. Even though Michael Penix, I think you could make you trust him more than Quinn Ewers.
I'm sure you guys talk about this all the time, but I mean, they play half their games. People are sleeping, right? Like people don't even have any idea. Like if they watch this, there's no way 7-1.
Not existing after
it's
this
like there's no way they're 7-1 if people had watched even 5 games this year, right? It's just no one has any idea.
Washington's the most fascinating team in, I don't want to say in college football, but hear me out. Preseason, a lot of us had them to make the playoff, them to win the championship. They go out, they win every game. Yeah. They beat Oregon at home. Then they played pretty crappy, let's be honest. Yeah. You know, they had the flu bug or whatever it was, and then, you know, they had a couple close games, the scoreless second half and the pouring rain in Corvallis. And then they go out on a field as a 10-point, 9.5-point dog, and I didn't think they would win, and they put it on them. I mean, I know Oregon came back and took the lead, but I was really impressed. So, yeah, I mean, it's an
plus 750. I mean, that's very favorable.
Right. Yeah, I mean,
it could happen.
Yeah, I think any one of the this is the first time, and maybe I'm forgetting a year. Maybe I want to say the first year when Ohio State was the 4. Sure. I think we said any one of these teams could win.
Right.
This is the first year I can recall that we're like, yeah. I mean, look, to your point, I didn't think TCU was going to beat Michigan, and they did.
Right.
So, and then they lost by 1 million.
Yeah.
All right, so who wins it? Subject to change.
Alabama.
Ooh.
That was my preseason pick. Why would I give up on it now?
Who wins it, Matt?
I think Alabama as well. I mean, it's just we keep talking about it. It's just what we keep talking about. It's Nick Saban with tons of time to prepare, with a team that he has, figured out how to, like you mentioned. I mean, figured out how to make this team probably his least talented team. I know it's full of 4- and 5-star guys, but I mean, probably his least talented team. Get better over the course of the season and like peak at the right time and all those things. It just seems like because he's got the greatest deal with the devil ever in the world, it just seems like it's going to happen yet again to all of us. We sit back and we just go, there it is.
I would add, they just beat the most talented team in the country.
Yeah.
And they beat him, I don't want to say, it was a 3-point game, but they were up most of the game. They were up 10 to 7 points most of the game.
Running the ball pretty well. I mean, it comes down to Milroe and I think Tommy Rees and how they scheme it up. I really think you can make a case for all of them. If I'm forced to pick it, I'll say Texas.
I have a future on Texas at, I think, 20-1 after they lost.
Look, it was a nice sit-back rocking chair Big 12 future to come home on Saturday, so that was nice. Texas is back, folks. If only we had Joe Tessitore on the call there for that one. All right, we'll wrap on this. Once again, Matt Fortuna joining us here. I want to go back to the portal because it's so fascinating when it comes to the quarterback carousel right now, and that's what it is. And these guys are going out and getting their money. Daquan Finn goes in from Toledo today, so a whole lot of people going in. Who do you think right now that's out there is the biggest game-changing quarterback when he gets to town? Because, look, we just saw the Heisman finalists, Bo Nix, transfer, Jaden Daniels, transfer.
Penix, transfer.
Penix, transfer. We got a minute. Who is the most impact transfer in college football next year that is currently in the portal?
I'd say Dylan Gabriel. When you look at what he did at UCF, when you look at what he did at Oklahoma, I don't know where he's going to end up. Obviously, Mississippi State would be a natural landing spot because Jeff Levy's there. I don't know what Oregon's going to do. I mean, they're always active in the portal, and Bo Nix is out of eligibility for once. I mean, after playing 60-something games.
I think
sure? Dylan Gabriel's not. So
this is his 8th redshirt senior season. So, yes, finally. Yes,
so I think wherever Dylan Gabriel ends up will end up being the biggest get.
You do a Notre Dame podcast. Is Riley Leonard destined for South Bend?
Yeah, barring anything unforeseen. And look, the answer to the question you just asked last year was Sam Hartman. Now, did it play out that way?
Sun Bowl MVP Sam Hartman?
Is he playing in the Sun Bowl?
I don't know. I just took the under today because who's playing quarterback for either team? We don't know. What we do know, you can read all of Matt's work Inside Zone. Also catch him with Pete Sampson on the Independent podcast. Matt, appreciate you stopping by.
Anytime. Ben Galbertson is starting for Oregon State. Started how many games last year?
The Vegas Bowl MVP.
Yep.
Go to VSiN.com/subscribe to become a VSiN Pro subscriber today.